just a better person than I knew I was.
Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patty Vasquez. And from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bankstead. We've got the usual suspects from...
Our fearless to our friends at Minocqua Brewing Company.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Up North Pat podcast. This is Kirk Bankstead. I am here in the Minocqua Brewing Company Madison Taproom. We've got some guests here who came specifically to hear about and talk to our first guest, who I'll introduce, Thom Hartmann, who I'll introduce in a second. But before I get to Tom, I wanted to introduce my partners in crime here. We have Patty Vasquez from WCPT 820 AM in Chicago, and we're on Patty's time. That's why we're never quite synced with our intro stuff, and we'll get that right. But we're on Patty's time because she's got real commercials to play on her show. We got Ben Cominos from Outside the Box. That's WHBY in Appleton, Wisconsin. Patty and Ben write for me every week. Talk about political stuff happening in the Midwest and nationally. And this is a very special show today. I haven't known Thom Hartmann as long as so many folks that come to our tap room have known Thom Hartmann. They basically religiously listen to Thom on the radio. I just wanted to give a brief intro. Thom hosts the weekday syndicated radio show, the Thom Hartmann Program, reaching millions of listeners across North America and beyond since 2003. He is also a New York Times bestselling author whose work spans political commentary, education, media analysis, all grounded in his progressive social justice lens. I was on Thom's show the other day. We talked a little bit about Substack because we have a large Substack presence, the Minocqua Brewing Company, and we're trying to do in a very amateur way what Thom has been doing for a long time. But he's after our chat, he agreed to be on our program as well. And I really thank you so much, Thom, for joining the show. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
You have an audience here of people drinking beer, listening to you in my place.
I'm so jealous.
I wanted to. We have you on for two segments today, and I'm really interested. We want to talk about what's happening now in the next segment, but this segment, I've only been in. We're trying to do this activism, resistance stuff in the Midwest, and monitoring, documenting, disseminating government abuse is what brought me to restart this podcast, because I feel like it's so very important. But you've been doing this for a long time, and I wanted to talk a little bit about your career. And when you started off in radio, it was before Trump 1.0, 2016, and before Trump, his last presidency. How can you talk about what it was like doing progressive radio back then, and then kind of walk us through how things might have changed? I'm guessing they've changed a ton because politics has changed in America so much.
Yeah, to say the very least, Kirk.
Yeah.
I actually started in radio in 1967. I was 16. I was at MSU at Brody Hall, and I wasn't at Brody Hall. It was a girls' dorm, but they had a radio station, and I did a show there, and WBRY, I think it was called. And after a couple of months, I put together a tape, and I got a gig at the local country western station, which was the #1 station in Lansing, as a weekend DJ. And from there went and did progressive rock, and then did progressive rock overnight for a year and a half with a lot of social commentary between album cuts. And then ended up after 3 years going back to WITL, and I did news there for 7 years in the morning. So in 2003 or in late 2002, as Bush was driving us into Iraq, I wrote an op-ed for Common Dreams. I'd been writing quite a few of them. Titled Talking Back to Talk Radio, in which I said, I used to work in this business. I was a program director. I was on-air talent. I did news. I was a DJ. And it's crazy, this myth that only right-wingers can catch an audience on talk radio. In fact, the #1 talk radio host in America, at one point I believe it was in the 70s, was Alan Berg, out of Denver. That station was a blowtorch. You could hear it in 27 states. He was murdered by a couple of skinheads, and which paved the way for Rush Limbaugh. But he was doing great. And Michael Jackson, the British guy, was doing great in Los Angeles, and et cetera. So anyhow, I made this pitch that we needed to have a progressive radio network, and that I got a call from a couple of venture capitalists showing they needed to drop me in Chicago, and flew out there and met with them. And that became the original business plan for Air America Radio. And I helped put it together, put it on the air. And I started out my show about a year before Air America went live, because I wanted to do proof of concept. And I was, at that time, I had sold an ad agency. Louise and I had sold a business in Atlanta, and we were basically retired. We were living in the woods in Vermont, and I was writing a book. And so I contacted radio stations around Vermont. We found one in Burlington that was willing to give me 2 hours on a Saturday morning after the swap meet, and put together a show and did it for a month or so, and sent tapes out, and got picked up by a network, i.e. America Radio Network, out of Detroit. It was owned by the UAW, and that put us on 27 stations plus Sirius radio, Sirius satellite radio at the time. That was before they merged with XM. And that was, at the time, pretty much the only progressive show in America. And then, a year later, we rolled out Air America, and we were doing this whole thing. The challenge has always been platform, frankly. We were on, when Air America was alive, we were on 57 stations. They were all except 3 were owned by Clear Channel. We didn't have the money to buy them, so we were leasing them, but about 90% of America could get our signal, and we had a huge audience. And in fact, after Obama was elected to the presidency, I was invited to the White House, and it wasn't him who said this to me, but it was one of his people. It said that, we believe that that Obama wouldn't have gotten elected without Air America in 2008. And I think that's probably true. I mean, we had a hell of a signal. And that was, the following year, 2009, that was the year Mitt Romney decided that he was going to run against Obama for re-election. And so he had his company buy Clear Channel for a little over $1 billion. And then over the course of the next 2 years, they just turned us off on station after station as our contracts renewed, and flipped those stations to sports, saying that they couldn't sell advertising, which was a complete lie. In fact, I had traveled all around the country to all of the stations. I put together a whole PowerPoint presentation on how to sell progressive advertising on progressive radio. And, but anyhow, Mitt Romney killed us, and, a billionaire. And, I pitched Tom Steyer and a bunch of other people on, why you guys need to put something together here. We need a progressive radio network, and, without any success, but I've persisted. And I would say the main thing that has changed from then until now is that, prior to Trump showing up on the scene, I really wasn't getting very many death threats, and just vicious online harassment. And now that's kind of a regular thing. So, that the dialogue has coarsened. Sorry if I went on. You asked me what time it was, and I told you how to build a watch, but I'll try to be briefer in the future.
I was never going to stop you. Hi, Tom. I'm Ben Cominos. I host Outside the Box up in Appleton, Wisconsin. I have to say, when I got in, I've been doing this for 3 years, and I thought I was building something that had never been done before when I decided to bring progressive talk to radio. And now that I've known about you for a little over a year at this point, I love what you're doing, and I've been excited for this conversation here. I want to ask you, you kind of laid it out there, and I oftentimes talk with this on this podcast here, as well as my listeners up in Northeast Wisconsin. I believe there is a path forward for progressive voices to take over in talk radio. There are people in Northeast Wisconsin who said they would vote for a Mom Donnie style freeze the rent type of candidate in our neck of the woods. But it's a matter of amplifying those voices, and to a certain extent, our own party amplifying those voices in meaningful ways. Do you think, after all of your experience and the way you're seeing the tide shift, as we see still 15 out of 16 talk stations very clearly dominated by right-wing voices, is there a path forward in this sphere still today? Because I think this is untapped territory, or is that a more naive way of looking at this kind of stuff?
No, you're absolutely right. And in 2000, 9 or 10 when it was becoming apparent that Mitt Romney was going to kill off Air America. A couple of us went to D.C. Bernie Sanders put this thing together with a bunch of senators and three or four senators and about 24 members of the House from the Progressive Caucus. And, Randy Rhodes made a pitch and I made a pitch, and, for them to reach out to their donors and just say, it's crazy that the DNC is raising $1 billion every 4 years, when that's enough to buy Clear Channel. And in the future, you wouldn't have to raise $1 billion. You could raise 1/10 of that because you'd have, continuous 24/7 advertising. And the proof of concept, by the way, is 1,500 right-wing radio stations and the fact that Republicans are getting elected. And Bernie was gung ho for this, as were most of the people in the room. And then Hillary Clinton got up and said, we really shouldn't be interfering in the marketplace. That's not the job of government. That's not the job of the Democratic Party. And we're not going to go along with this. And that just kind of killed the meeting. And that was the end of that. So the bottom line is, whoever owns the platform, and this is obviously, what Larry and David Ellison know, whoever owns the platform is ultimately going to determine, the fate and future of the type of media and, content that's out there. And, we need some wealthy people. It's just unfortunate that, probably 99 out of 100 billionaires are right wingers.
Thom, we've got about a couple minutes here, and I just want to ask you, the fact that folks say, well, radio is dead, I think is incorrect. We know that the numbers are still huge. And on top of that, what would you say the sort of the multi-platform abilities right now are enhancing our ability to message out there? Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, we have to do that. I mean, when my show's on the air, we're on Sirius XM, we're on, I don't know how many radio stations. We're on a bunch of, a large handful of commercial stations, basically all the progressive commercial stations in the country. And then on probably, around 100 of the nonprofit Pacifica affiliated stations, some of them really small, some of them really large. And we also are live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter. We're, now X. We're live on Facebook. We're live on TikTok. We're live on Twitch. We're live on, we're live on Substack. We're just simulcasting. Oh, and on Free Speech TV, which is on Dish and Direct and, in lots and lots of homes across the country as television. And, I think that has been the thing that has allowed us to survive. By us, I'm talking about my show, and the people who work with and for me. And a few of the others, Stephanie Miller and a couple of the other programs that are doing this multi-platform thing. I don't think that you can just do radio anymore, unless you just want to talk to boomers, because that's basically your radio audience is older people. If you want to reach people under 40 or really under 30, you've got to be in these social media platforms. And then we take that content and repurpose it as clips and as podcasts.
We just got to convince Gen Z that radio is cool, and Gen Alpha, all the folks.
Yeah.
We are broadcasting the Up North podcast, of course, brought to you by Minocqua Brewing Company. Joining us is Thom Hartmann, along with our host, Ben Cominos from Outside the Box on WHBY, and our fearless leader, Kirk Banks at MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. More after this on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950.
This is WCPT telling you.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. That's thc.MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive. which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive Beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code Up North.
Hey, everybody. We are back with the Up North podcast. We're just moving some cameras around here in studio. Brought to you, of course, by Minocqua Brewing Company. I want to say a quick thank you to Source Solar. Go to source.solar and Pride Coffee Roasters. And Kirk Banks said, take it away, my friend. We're joined by Thom Hartmann and Ben Cominos.
You're muted, Kirk.
We all have that
one person
moment
among professional radio hosts that thinks he has to lead us all in after break. It's kind of ridiculous. So I appreciate you bearing with me. In this segment, I wanted to move the conversation to kind of where we were leading before. Obviously, Thom, you're saying if we want to reach an audience, a lot of this younger audience has somehow been, have drank the Kool-Aid. I mean, we see these young people have voted for Trump, in margins that we just don't understand, because usually the young folks are more ideological and everything. So we have to move the conversation to other, outside of radio. The question I have now is, I wanted to talk first about mainstream media, what you think's happening to it, and then move into the other channels and why they're important and why they might be damaging. So first, Thom, mainstream media, I've lost faith. They're seemingly bending the knee. You've been doing this a long time. Is this cyclical or is it here to stay? What's your take on, getting the truth anymore?
I don't. It's a great question, Kirk. I don't think that we've ever seen anything like this in American history. When radio stations became a thing in the 1920s, they were interfering with each other, and so the FCC was created to, prevent interference. And at the same time, they put in some guardrails, eventually leading to things like, the Fairness Doctrine and most importantly, the limits on station ownership. You couldn't own a radio station, a television station, and a newspaper in the same town. You couldn't own multiple radio or television stations in the same state. You couldn't own stations across states. That all got blown up in 1996 when Bill Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act, which was just an abomination. That's when Clear Channel went from a half a dozen stations down in the South to 1,000 stations in a year and a half. And so, we've got a media landscape business-wise that we've never seen before in this country. And now you've got a political party, the Republican Party, that is, and the billionaires behind it, largely specifically like, the Heritage Foundation and all this, that have been following Viktor Orban and Vladimir Putin's formula to a T. When Orban and Putin took over their respective countries, they were democracies. Briefly, it had been that briefly, but in the fall of the Soviet Union. And in both cases, they began suing reporters and media outlets, trying to drive them into bankruptcy. And as the media outlets went out of business, they were bought up by oligarchs that were friendly to Orban and Putin, to the point where now in both Hungary and Russia, there basically is no opposition media any longer. And it's all, that's at least inside the country. I mean, there is Russian language stuff on the internet, and there is Hungarian language stuff on the internet, from dissidents, but they're all outside the countries. And it's very clear to me that that's what the GOP is trying to do. And they've got some friendly billionaires who are trying to help them do it. And now, you've got the Ellisons have control of CBS. They put Barry Weiss in charge. There've been lawsuits against NBC and ABC. ABC bent the knee for a while, but Jimmy Kimmel. But we'll see where that goes. There is talk about the Ellisons buying CNN. There's NBC, Comcast has made it very clear they intend to spin off MSNBC, and nobody knows who's going to buy it. But my bet, if I was betting, would be that it'll be somebody like the Ellisons. It'll be a right-wing billionaire. And it's just really clear to me that their goal is to create basically a media empire that, in terms of mainstream media, Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal in Rupert Murdoch's hands, the LA Times, a right-wing billionaire. That the goal of all of this stuff is just complete media consolidation, which is only going to leave, the social media. And the problem there is that, the algorithm in each case, in fact, the article I'm publishing tomorrow at hartmannreport.com is about the danger of the algorithm, because, you've got Zuckerberg and Musk and the people who run Google, who are all bending the knee to Trump, who are tweaking their algorithms. So even if you put yourself, on any of those platforms, on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter, the algorithm is not your friend. That's wrong, but that I believe is going to be used like it is in Russia and Hungary right now to crack down on social media as well, along with lawsuits, libel suits. So I'm very pessimistic, actually, on the one hand. On the other hand, there's some green shoots out here, and this network of stations in Wisconsin, for example.
So Thom, we're kind of a green shoot, and and I'll be honest, the only reason that we made it on Substack is because if you buy a T-shirt from me, this is the algorithm. If you buy a T-shirt from me, I get your email address. I upload your email address to Substack. All of a sudden, we make number 9 in U.S. politics as a Substack page because I've uploaded the people who probably like us because they've bought stuff from us before, a beer or a T-shirt. But we're making it now, and we're trying to do what we can as a company to professionally get information out to people who might not be getting it. I would like to ask, we're a green shoot. We're amateur. We didn't go to Medill School of Journalism. Is this helping or harming the discussion? The fact that we're trying to do this. I hope you say it's helping, but you're a professional. Obviously Patty and Ben are maybe, but what do you think about the green shoots where are people going? A lot of people are going to Substack. Is it helpful?
Let 1,000 flowers bloom. We've got to do that. We've got to be in as many places as we can, as loudly as we can. We're up against some big money, mostly. You look at Charlie Kirk, for example. They just poured literally millions of dollars into him and his organization, and turned him into a media sensation. We got to do it. You're doing good, Kirk, and Ben and Patty.
So,
You're all doing good.
I want to keep this conversation going, but we have some guests who love you, who want to get into the conversation as well. So we're going to turn it over. What's your name, my friend? Scott has a question for you.
Hey, Thom.
Go into the mic.
I can't hear myself.
You got to eat the mic, Scott.
I got to eat the mic.
There you go.
My dream was to talk to you, and I'm too chicken to call you up on the radio. So I decided to come here and ask you, is there a way we can do like a shadow government for like 2 items, unemployment numbers, which are being delayed because of the shutdown, and maybe the unemployment numbers,
and presumably and inflation, I'm guessing, is your second one.
Inflation and
and unemployment. The shadow government's a great idea, and I've been pitching it for years. The problem is that there are these 2 large factions in the Democratic Party, and nobody actually controls the party right now. So we're working on it. We're getting there, right? As Ben is pointing out, but we've got a ways to go, especially the progressive faction. And so I don't think that's going to be the solution, but there are, those statistics are available. They're just not coming from the government right now. You read the Financial Times, there's employment companies that track this stuff and people that track inflation. And both numbers are looking pretty bad. And now Trump, I don't know if anybody noticed, but 2 days ago, Trump just offhandedly said to a reporter while he was on Air Force One, we don't really need the government. We can just leave it shut down. And I think he really actually meant that. In fact, I went on a rant last week and wrote an article arguing that Mike Johnson's not, that the reason that we're in a 6-month or 6-week recess is because they actually don't want the government operating, these Republicans. And that's a really dangerous thing, because what it does is it hands king-like power to Donald Trump, because the only check on his power right now is Congress. And if Congress isn't meeting, then, we're screwed.
Thank you so much, Thom Hartmann. Of course, you can find him, as he mentioned earlier, on all the platforms and all the places, all of his books. I didn't know you were on Twitch. You are everywhere. And I'm seeing you a lot more on my social media, too, when I'm doom scrolling. It's nice to see your face pop up. So thank you so much for all your hard work. Thank you for holding down the fort until, the more backup could arrive, because you have been doing this, in the face of tremendous odds. So thank you so much for all that. And I'm sorry for all the death threats that we all get lately. But no one deserves that. Thank you so much, Thom Hartmann. Find him all the places. We're going to take a break here and come back with the Up North podcast. Joining us will be Amelia with Milwaukee Turners up next on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950. And we'll be back with Kirk Bankston and Ben Cominos.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC hop water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC hop water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. That's thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
Time you drive after drinking, music gets
Hello, everyone, and we are
Back to the Up North podcast. Joining us is Patty Vasquez, WCPT, Ben Cominos of Outside the Box in Appleton, and I'm Kirk Bankstead, and we have Emilio Del Torre, who I met when I was freaking out when Trump got elected, and I was trying to solve problems like I run a business, which is doing things on my own, which is not the way to do things. And I was introduced to Emilio, who has become one of my mentors in terms of how to engage and be a part and plug in to a resistance movement here in Wisconsin. So Emilio, we are right about to start this period where we're losing SNAP benefits and where people are like, what the heck? This is just crazy. And I thought it'd be very interesting because you've talked about resistance, you've thought about movements, you're a great organizer in Wisconsin. Mutual aid is a part and parcel of everything that's involved with organizing and with trying with social change and making a difference. And so I wanted to put this into context, what this SNAP issues with what we need to do as volunteers, put it into context of what mutual aid is to a resistance movement. Here's our
Thanks, and thanks, Kirk. This is nothing new. I'm sure everybody listening to you has seen this before. It's nothing even new for the Milwaukee Turners. We're 100.
We've lost
Elected to the Milwaukee Public School Board, who is a Milwaukee Turner, started the first penny lunches, the first medical clinics. Fred Hampton from the Black Panthers in the 60s and 70s built on this concept of mutual aid with free food and health clinics and vaccines. And they knew then what we know now, which is neighbors have to help neighbors. An act of resistance, psychologically speaking now, is also an act of joy. How do I prevent you from not only starving, because we're talking, 42 million people are going to lose their SNAP benefit shortly. That's 700,000 Wisconsinites are going to lose this. And this type of mutual aid is an act of resistance and an act of resilience, because let's be real, there are racist tropes being portrayed, like SNAP is only for Black welfare mothers and only you poor people who aren't working. We have to confront the fact that we are not paying wages that humans can live on here. And SNAP benefits are going to folks that are working at Walmart and McDonald's and have jobs where they need this additional support so that they don't have to choose between paying their light bills and feeding their babies. And so just this morning, first thing I did after taking care of my own family, I did a press conference with MTEA, Hungry Task Force, Block, Voces de la Frontera, a lot of great groups who are contributing money to food pantries. Metcalf Park Community Bridges, another great organization that's setting up free refrigerators. Why? Because neighbors have to help neighbors. If you're talking about mutual aid, and it's a new phrase for you, what do your friends, family, and neighbors need, and how do you provide them what they need? Is that cash? Is it food? Is it education? We just drove in here from another conference where we were talking about legal. So we have healthcare workers, right? You have, you go at this whole healthcare consortium. You have a doctor, maybe you have some paraprofessionals, nurses aides, nurses there. Imagine having that, trying to navigate filling out SNAP benefits or dealing with confronting an eviction. Having this continuum of care. Mutual aid is a homegrown grassroots continuum of care, providing for us what billionaires and petty politicians are trying to rob from us.
Emilio, Ben Cominos up in Appleton, Wisconsin. I absolutely am loving what you have to say. And I have to say, anybody who is talking Fred Hampton is talking my language. I based a lot of my show after what he is, what he's about, I should say. I have to ask you, since you mentioned him, the one thing that sticks out to me about that era compared to this era are those racist tropes. You can find video of a 21-year-old Fred Hampton talking to a room filled with skinheads, traditional white people, Latinos, Black people across the spectrum, you name it, all coming together in the name of having this mutual aid, having access, understanding that there is a boot on all of our collective necks, regardless of race, creed, religion, whatever the situation may be. That is definitely an element that is missing from this movement. And what do you think we need to do to be able to kind of jump over that hurdle?
That's a great question. And I think one of the first things we need to do is get past our perceived differences as being obstacles and fences to prevent us from having unity and solidarity. And we have to look at mutual aid as solidarity and not charity. If you read Eduardo Galeano, he talks about how he loves solidarity and not charity because charity is so top down and solidarity is linear. It is supporting one another from a focus of human dignity and equality. All of us are born inherently deserving dignity. You do not have to earn dignity. You are born inherently having dignity. And when you have politicians playing with the lives and hunger of our children, exploiting racialized differences to drive a wedge between us, well, that's just a tactic like trying to overwhelm us, like they were talking about before, stealing media, stealing your access to information. You can't let that overcome you. So what do you need to do? You need to diversify where you spend your money. You need to donate to organizations like Metcalf Park Community Bridges, like Black, Latino, and Native run organizations. You need to make sure that you're shopping in a variety of places and demystifying the intentional ignorance that was taught to us as whatever our ethnicity or religion was initially. Remember, it wasn't so long ago that Catholics and Lutherans couldn't pray or marry or break bread together. This is in our lifetimes. So the same way our folks got past that, we need to get past being afraid of Black or Latino or Native or immigrant human beings that are here, because we're all part of the same community. And that's, to your point, that is what they do not want us to do. They want you to feel that that offering food benefits to an individual is somehow bad, or you're fulfilling a racist trope, and that is the exact opposite. Remember how they weaponized xenophobia against Asian people during COVID. Why? Because it kept us from focusing on the fact that we could support one another holistically. We need to look past that and ourselves to actually fulfill what I believe is our instructions to build the beloved community. And I'm not saying that as a hippie. You can hear from my New York accent, I'm not really a hippie. But that's our homework from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There is no reason why neighbors can't help neighbors. There is no reason why you can't smile at somebody in the street, and there's no reason why you can't take a couple of extra bucks you had and put that into a food bank or a food pantry to make sure that the 700,000 people that are in the flick of a switch going to lose their SNAP benefits can't bring food to the table for their families. Costs you hardly anything.
Emilio, this is Patty Vasquez. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I had a conversation with our friend Sean Allen from Union Proud Warrior here in Chicago, and he echoes a lot of the things you're saying. Are you partnering with unions? Because that seems like another area where we could really get some support and manpower, I think, as well.
Yes, in a variety of different ways. This is, again, we don't normally do food justice at the Milwaukee Turners. What we do is we support sound minds and sound bodies through our 4 principles of liberty, tolerance, reason, and justice. We've done this since 1853. We are older than the Milwaukee Police Department, and we're in a national monument. What we have done is offer people what they need when they need it. It's part of our democracy. Fitness education, health resources. Unions are a great way to work with individuals who are organized, which respects workers' rights and labor, which is the backbone to our economy, regardless of the 8 billionaires who own more wealth than 3.5 billion other people combined. And labor unions cause them fear because it shows that collective muscle can push back against individuals who might own the property underneath you, but not your hearts and soul. So yes to your suggestion.
So Emilio, we started this conversation as, you've been a mentor for me in terms of resistance. If once, we shell out money and we donate to food banks, and if they open up government again, where do we go? If we've helped each other, how does that help us organize to get to the next hurdle we have, which is, to try to exist as a democracy?
Well, that's a great question. That kind of speaks to the failing where we're at today. I think so many of our relationships are transactional. We think, oh, I fixed that problem, it's gone. No, the problem is inherent in where we are as the United States today, which is all of our relationships are transactional, and that's not how it should be. How do we support one another on a daily basis? How do I consistently show up to support you, Kirk, and the work that you're doing? How do I show up to support my friends and neighbors and potential friends and neighbors in Black communities and Asian communities and Latino communities? How do we recognize and put into practice that our diversity is our strength? How do we, the new relationships that you make addressing, if you're new into this, if they're newly turning on your podcast, if they're newly listening to WCPT, how do they continue connecting with these new folks fighting for food justice and build from that? Start a book club. Do neighborhood beautification. Read Palaces for the People by Eric Kleinenberg and learn 100 different ways to develop social infrastructure to increase resilience as well as resistance.
Patty, I'll unmute myself. Hi, everybody. Emilio, where can folks go to support the work that you're doing? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
I'd love that. You can reach out to us, MilwaukeeTurners.org. That's www.MilwaukeeTurners.org. Or come visit us at Turner Hall in downtown Milwaukee. We're always there. And if not, leave the ghost a message.
Excellent. Thank you so much to you and everyone that's doing the good work. We're going to be right back with the Up North podcast in just a moment. We're joined by Ben Cominos, host of Outside the Box on WHBY, and of course our fearless leader, Kirk Banks. I go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, subscribe to the newsletter, maybe purchase some progressive brew, pick up some great gear, and support the work that we all do. In particular, our newsletters are very proud of that. Let's come back after this on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to Apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
PT 820, where facts matter.
All right, guys.
And we are resuming our Up North podcast. We're excited to be joined. It's brought to you by Minocqua Brewing Company's Kirk Bankstead. Joining us as well is Ben Cominos, the host of Outside the Box on WHBY. And they have an app because they're fancy that way. But go to WHBY.com. What was that?
You said that we are. Yeah.
Take it away, Kirk. Oh, sorry. Who's taking it away?
Don't worry about it, Patty. I got it covered for you here. I appreciate the intro there. We are speaking to Emily Cephos coming up next, who I actually got the fortunate opportunity to speak to during election season last year while she was running against someone that it turns out isn't even living in that district anymore. Go figure, right? But she is coordinating a district-wide food drive to ensure families, working folks, and seniors do not go hungry. Very important as we approach that day coming up on Saturday here as SNAP benefits dry up. The effort, which began on the 27th, just on Monday, will run through November 8th, seeks to bolster supply for local food programs and pantries serving the greater Fox Valley area, Black Creek, Shiocton, New London, Hortonville, Wapaka, Manawa, Wyawega, and Fremont. You'd think I lived here my whole life. Thank you very much for being here, Emily. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Glad to join you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you have your work cut out for you here. I mean, even as we speak, I see press releases coming also from Representative Lee Snodgrass and State Senator Kristen Dassler-Alfheim. They're making their way to a food pantry. What day is this year? Tomorrow as well. Lots of things on your plate right now. What kind of support are you getting, not just from the political tentacles here that you have connections with, but just the people in the area? Because Lord knows the Fox Cities is good at this kind of stuff here. So what's that like?
Yeah, we have reached out to a lot of people, and I mean, this is being led by ordinary folks. I'm a candidate. Yes, I'm connected. I know the representative and the senator, but it's a lot of folks that are just taking it upon themselves to put a bin outside their door, up in their business or in their office space, and they are filling them up, and they're sending me pictures, being like, "I need you to pick it up today rather than Friday because we're filled to the brim." And so it's been really, really incredible, and we're trying really to focus, especially on those rural food pantries that they're going to be hit hard. They don't have the shelf space or the supply to really have that backup that they need. So we want them to be fully stocked and ready to go as people need it.
Kirk, you're muted.
We have people that are drinking beer in here, so I got to mute myself because all you'd hear is awesome folks rumbling and bumbling. So, Emily, I called you earlier because I got this press release. Seems like it got to me, and I'm in Madison and Minocqua, and we wanted to talk to somebody who was like in the weeds with this. How is your the communication going? Are people hearing about this, and are there what are you doing, and how does it fit into what else is going on in northeastern Wisconsin?
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot going on, especially in our more like urban areas. Like we have St. Joe's Food Program in the Appleton, Neenah, Menasha area that is like, there are businesses that are stepping up in big ways out there, which is incredible. But like outside of that, it's really, really limited. And what we're depending on is word of mouth from community members that, know how important this is. And they're really stepping up. So it's been cool to see people I'm doing it. I'm political and people know that. And they're like, yeah, put it in my business. We need to fill up those pantry shelves. So it's been really like a grassroots kind of effort. And we're seeing like really positive results. So a big encouragement to anybody that's wondering what to do right now, like arrange one of these in your own neck of the woods and support those food pantries.
What kind of sorry, everybody. Too many buttons. What kind of concerns do folks have in communities when it comes to the kind of ripple effect that the suspending SNAP benefits is going to have, whether it's agriculture or grocery stores, all those different layers? It's not simply the people who rely on the SNAP benefits, right?
Yeah, sure. So I actually talked to a grocery store manager this afternoon who kind of explained, like, we don't know what's going to happen when these people are desperate for food and we don't know how best to support them. And so they're kind of working with food pantries. You'll see like Festival and Piggly Wiggly have actually donated to different food pantries up here just to like bolster their supply. But I'm really worried because I'm talking to folks all the time that are, in this district, and there are people like on that bubble. And so I'm really concerned about those folks that are working really hard that use SNAP either as like supplemental or for their entire month that cannot survive, like literally can't put food on the table without it. And then like when you talk about the layering effect, we've got like the premiums that are expected to rise up, and that's a 1-2 punch. So not only can we not eat, but we can't afford to go to the doctor. Like it's a terrible position for these folks to be in. And we're just trying to show up like to meet that urgent need connected to policy. And then like your guest before mentioned, like change the systems that have been broken and haven't been serving these folks.
Yeah, I think you're accurately describing exactly what so many people are going through right now. And unfortunately, in this world, we can't look at anything without looking at it through a partisan lens here. So I have to ask the question, what does that element of this look like? I mean, Lord knows, I'm sure plenty of people on the right side of the aisle don't necessarily agree with your politics, but feeding hungry people on paper should be a pretty popular policy here. What kind of interaction are you getting on that front?
Yeah, I think we don't let the muckety mucks steer that conversation. You'll find that like we all want people to be fed. Like that's a pretty common truth. What we say in all of these situations, and I've been saying online and in real life, is like, I don't care about your politics. I don't care. People are not being fed right now, and that is all that matters to me. And we can like debate back and forth on the policy decisions and the budget shutdown and stuff like that. But if you want to feed your neighbor, like let's be in solidarity on at least this effort, and then open it up to discussion afterwards. So, I mean, it exists for sure, but I think there's that common truth that we care about our community.
Yeah. I mean, to me, this conversation sprang up last week, and I follow, I try to do as much reading as I can and follow politics and follow, the news. We're all talking about this right now because this is this looming deadline. But it seems like it's a grassroots effort. I mean, I would think, that wouldn't, if I were governor, and by the way, I'll never be probably governor, but if I were governor of Wisconsin, I would somehow declare a state of emergency, and we have $5 billion, that we're just sitting on from like the COVID money that was given to us a long time ago. We have this surplus that the Republicans have never let the governor use, but it's a surplus. Seemingly, I would just be Trumpy, and I would say, I'm going to spend the surplus and buy food for everybody. Take me to court if you want to. Let's test the boundaries, to see if sue me if you want. I'm giving people food. What do you think about, the actual, power structure of Wisconsin government? Where are they right now?
I am not, it's above my pay grade to know what's going on inside those doors because I don't get paid for what I do. But I will say that like I'm looking for a strong leader, right? Like I'm looking for people that are just going to do the right thing regardless of the ramifications of it, and like have thought through like the immediate need that these folks have right now, and that is food on the table. So I'd really like to see people stepping up and being really strong about it. But at the very least, you're filling up and supporting your own community and calling to attention like the egregious missteps and the like utter nonsense that this situation is. Like it doesn't have to exist. So like being strong about that. I that's the kind of leadership that I look for.
Hey, everybody. I remembered I have so many buttons I have to push. I want to reiterate how grateful we are to organizations and folks like you that are doing the work. What do you say to people who say that there's so much fraud? It's okay if people go hungry or don't have access to those benefits.
Yeah, I mean, first off, like we fight misinformation with facts. So giving them facts and figures and be like, nope, this is the reality of the situation. These folks are working too hard. These systems were set up so that even when you do everything you're supposed to do, it's still not quite enough. And that's why we're in this position. And so acknowledging like, hey, like I get that you don't want your tax dollars, but I mean, frankly, right? We just spent $40 billion of our tax dollar and it went down to Argentina. So like, and I always think about the fact that like SNAP, the average Wisconsinite making $68,000 a year pays about $50 per year into the SNAP. Like that's your contribution to SNAP. You're paying $1,000, that same taxpayer, to corporate subsidies. And so when we're talking, right, when we're talking about like the left and the right of things, no, it's top and down. And while we're fighting amongst ourselves at the bottom here, they are laughing all the way to the bank. Like they're patting their pockets and they're picking ours. And I'm so tired of that. And I think we need to call that what it is every time.
Yeah, this isn't even really a question as much as I just want to add on to what you said there, because the work you're doing right now is invaluable and so important. And I think the metrics that I have seen shows that the way the SNAP program works, when adequately funded, it can do 9 times the kind of outreach that you're going to be capable of doing with this effort that I don't want to minimize. But I think hammering this kind of stuff home might open some eyes here when people say, oh, the fraud is unbelievable here. Not only is it more bang for your buck, but then that buck then turns around and gets pumped back into the system here.
I mean, the ROI on this investment is like what, 180 for every dollar that you put into the program. But if you think about our small businesses and our local grocers, like we are going to see the reverberations of this echo across these communities. And there is no like place that it stops. Everything's going to be affected.
So I think, the big story here is that maybe this will help Wisconsinites become Wisconsinites again. Before we were divided, I grew up in the 80s, in Stevens Point, and partisanship wasn't a big deal back then. And it was like, we're all Badgers and we all help each other out. Maybe all of this working together to try to just get food to people will start peeling the cloth from people's eyes that have been so, kind of mesmerized by the Trump world. So thank you so much, Emily, for being on the show. Thank you for all you're doing. Hopefully everybody else watching will think about food banks over the next couple weeks. Hopefully it's only a couple days. Ben Cominos, thanks for joining us from Outside the Box. Patty Vasquez, thanks for joining us from WCPT 820. And we will see you next week, hopefully with more food on everybody's plates.
Outstanding.
Have a good night, everyone.
Great show. Good night, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in for Up North podcast. We do this every Wednesday. Thanks to Minocqua Brewing Company. And thank you to our sponsors at Pride Coffee Roasters. Go to pridecoffeeroasters.com. And